The story for Star Trek the video game takes place in between the first Abrams movie and the second one that's about to come out, and of course it follows Captain Kirk, Spock, and the rest of the Starship Enterprise. In the first movie, the home planet of the Vulcans, called Vulcan, not very original there, got blown up, and in this game they're actually trying to look for a brand new home, and they think they might have actually found the perfect planet. Until they fudge it all up by using a brand new device called the Helios device, which was supposed to help them, but instead opens a huge hole into space and brings in the Gorn, which are these big lizard-like creatures that just take over and kill everything. And of course, what do? They start taking over New Vulcan and everything around it. And of course, who has to save everybody? The Starship Enterprise. So you play as either Spock or Kirk, and you have to go and fight the Gorn menace. Now, I very much enjoyed the story of Star Trek the video game. Is it predictable? Yes. Are the Gorns themselves not that great of enemies? Yeah, sadly. But I really enjoyed all of the character banter from everybody. The crew of the Starship Enterprise has so many different personalities, and they nail each and every one of them. From Spock to Scotty to Sulu to Bones to Captain Kirk. And the writing itself is actually pretty good, especially when all of these characters with all these different personalities start interacting with one another. The conversations between Kirk, Spock, Bones, Sulu, and whatnot are very humorous and very witty. It's a fun yet predictable story with great characters and writing. So overall, I think the story here is extremely enjoyable. Now, the sound for Star Trek the video game is actually spectacular. Voice acting is the highlight because they actually got all the actors from the films to play their characters. You got Chris Pine as Kirk, Zachary Quinto as Spock, Simon Pegg as Scotty, Carl Urban as Bones, Zoe Saldana as Uhura, Anton Yelchin as Chekhov, and John Chow as Sulu. And they all do a fantastic job of portraying the characters they already portrayed before. So good job. All the personalities, all of that, great. Now, the sound design itself is really good as well, especially when you get into the action and you hear all these phasers going off and you hear all the environmental sound effects, the creatures. It really does sound like a Star Trek video game. And the soundtrack is really good because it knows when to be very quiet or very intense during some of those big shootouts. And hell, even when there's a big action set piece, it knows how to be quiet because it's just the perfect time to be quiet when this big set piece is happening. And it really is very well done. So overall, the sound here is really damn good. Now, the graphics for Star Trek, the video game, a lot of people have said this game looks like crap. Now, I played it, and there is sure a lot of mediocre visuals, but there is some really good things in my opinion. First of all, the characters themselves look like the actors. Now, there's some times where the animations don't look that amazing, especially for some of the side characters like Sulu and Bones and whatnot, but Kirk and Spock look fantastic in my opinion. I think the animations for their mouths, the way they're modeled, especially Kirk's hair, looks great. I think the effects look pretty good at times. The fire effects and explosions, not so much. But I think the phasers themselves look actually pretty cool when they fire. And I think the Gorn themselves, while they repeat the character models a lot, they look pretty good. And while the environments are extremely bland and very claustrophobic, which is the exact opposite of what I would expect from a Star Trek game, there are times where the environment will open up in a big action set piece and it actually looks very good. So overall, I think the visuals themselves are pretty decent. They aren't great, but they sure the hell ain't terrible, you dickheads. So I've been pretty positive about Star Trek the video game so far. I thought the story was really good, I thought the sound was great, and the visuals, while not amazing, are pretty decent. But what did I think of the most important part of any game? The gameplay? Well, I'll tell you this. I didn't love it. I definitely did not. Star Trek the video game, get this, is a third-person action game where you can sprint, you can dodge roll, you can use cover, and you switch your weapons by using the D-pad. What does this sound like? Well, it sounds like Gears of War, and that's exactly what it is. Now, I wouldn't mind as long as the gunplay was actually a lot of fun. The thing is, it's fun at first, but it gets extremely repetitive, especially since all the weapons you pick up, all the Gorn weapons and all the Starfleet weapons, are extremely generic and not fun to shoot at all. You get about 10 weapons to pick and choose from, and each one of them actually has a secondary fire, which lets you either stun an enemy or actually like just overpower your shot and just blow them the hell up, which is kind of cool, but again, it gets real boring real quick. Now, the cover system isn't terrible, but it's extremely touchy. I found myself trying to get the hell off a wall or trying to sprint to another wall, but I couldn't. It just wouldn't really let me, and it was so annoying. Now, sprinting to cover and dodge rolling out of cover, that stuff works fine, but trying to transition into another piece of cover like Gears of War is very, very hard. Now, a big part of the gameplay is the tricorder, which is this little scanner that helps you find all of the enemies in an environment and where their positions are, and it actually lets you scan dead bodies and environmental objects so you can get XP and you can actually upgrade your character, either Spock or Kirk. They both have different type of upgrades. And I do like you can actually use the tricorder as a weapon. If you're Kirk, you use it to hack a grenade and explode an enemy, or you can actually use it to stun their weapon or something so they can't shoot at you. That's really cool. I actually really like that, and I used it a lot. And I'll give the developers credit. They actually did try to add some variety to the gameplay by adding stealth elements and platforming segments, but sadly neither work, especially the stealth, which sure is optional, but it's so ridiculously easy because the AI is so dumb and it's really boring. There's no challenge whatsoever and it's optional, so you might as well just go around and shoot everything, which is way more fun than the stealth, sadly. And the platforming is just an Uncharted / Tomb Raider ripoff that's extremely sluggish, and there's really no reason for it to be there at all. Just to, hey, we have platforming too, that's another feature. They also add some mini games in there, which I will admit are kind of fun at first, but then they start getting a little bit too repetitive when you have to do them over and over again to hack something. That's kind of annoying. And let me bring something back up. The AI in this game is ridiculous. The enemies are dumb, but they're serviceable. But your AI-controlled buddy, either Kirk or Spock, is ridiculous. They'll be running into walls, they'll be staying behind, they'll be getting shot at, you'll be getting shot at, and they'll do nothing. And if you're not playing this game in co-op, which I will admit, the co-op itself is kind of fun, it's ridiculous. If you don't have a buddy and you want to play this game by yourself, you're going to have a terrible time because the AI is ridiculous. Now, a couple of positives would include that the co-op itself is actually a lot of fun to bring someone else into the action with you, and I like that Kirk and Spock do play differently, so it adds a little bit more replayability. So overall, even though I thought the story, the sound, and even the graphics for the most part are good, I thought the gameplay itself was extremely mediocre, and it's only worth a rental. Do not buy this game. If it's 20 bucks maybe, but that's about it. So there's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and goodbye.